one game away. Blow up. We're playing for something, man. We're playing for something. This gotta mean something to you. It gotta mean something. Everything you got. Let's finish this.
Do it, fellas.
Let's go.
Let's do it, fellas.
Finish 2-3. 1, 2, 3. Finish.
Scared cause I'm drowning in silence with bad thoughts. These days I don't have nothing to say, man, the bag talks. I put in headphones on my driver. Pull up to the spot and give a good dick and Godiva. I can't lie, I'm uninspired. No more pillow talking about nonsense. I only stick around to put some band-aids on my conscience. I don't know why I feel so bad, nigga. That's what we do, no foundation. We don't build no more, we just screw. Half a bottle of Henny, girl, I'm going with the wind. The same niggas say they happy for me, ain't want me to win. So I'm done on my friends. Don't need help popping Coronas and reminiscing. I just call up Big Bro J and say it's time for venting. If I live forever, I hold this hate for some centuries. You don't know how much of how you doing what it meant to me, but motherfuck all that. I don't even offer up the time to make the call back. Stupid Lodo.
Jackson is a quarterback that's beating all of those dudes. He's beating all of those dudes. So in order to win a championship, you need that guy in order to get out of the AFC. My biggest problem with Baltimore is they wouldn't have this situation with the guaranteed contract if they had signed Lamar when he was first eligible for a contract extension. He won an MVP in year 2. He won a road playoff game in year 3. All you had to do was pay him before the Cowboys paid Dak Prescott, before the Browns paid Deshaun Watson, and you wouldn't be in this situation. So this is of their own making. The only way to make it right is to give the man the bag he's asking for.
Absolutely.
Period.
Marcus getting set to go.
I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I think meatloaf is a underrated delicacy, highly disrespected, highly underappreciated. But you get you a good meatloaf, bro. Some garlic mashed potatoes, man. You got yourself a good time. That's all I'm saying. But nonetheless, welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Saint. I am your host, Saint. Yo, I appreciate you for pulling up. Like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. But listen, we're here to talk about the Carolina Panthers. And we could possibly talk about some other things on along the journey. That's just how this thing usually go. But I do want to talk about the Carolina Panthers to get this thing started off because they did hide. Wow. I do apologize. I did not mean to burp to start the show. But these things happen. So with that being said, I do want to start off with the Carolina Panthers hiring Frank Reich as their new head coach. Listen, I don't think it's a bad hire. I do want to point out, just touching on the situation. So I know a lot of people thought, a lot of the Carolina Panther fans I talked to, and I never thought that Steve Wilkes was really going to get the job, but a lot of Carolina Panther fans thought that maybe he would. A lot of naive fans thought that he actually had a shot at getting it. I never thought he was going to have a chance of getting it. I don't think they was going to hire him even if they made the playoffs. It's interesting because, you know, I understand the people who say, oh, you know, Frank Reich is a good head coach and blah, blah, blah. Well, Steve Wilkes has never been given a legitimate opportunity for us to see if he was a good head coach or not. But what we do know is the Carolina Panthers were headed nowhere with Matt Rule. This was the worst team in football at one point in time this season. And Steve Wilkes somehow in a trash division, understandably, but still somehow got this team that I believe was in last place when he took them over. He got them within a win away from making it to the playoffs and winning the division. So if all I have is, and I know you could bring up his stint in Arizona, but like I said, he was a fall guy for that because they didn't even want him as a head coach. They just didn't have the head coach they wanted at the time. But if I'm basing it off of his most recent stint, he overachieved. Put it like that. And I understand people who are mad and say, well, this is another typical black dude. He the fall guy, white man come in and take over the job and I get the people who are upset with that. I really do. Because I don't even fall under the category of, I think it's a good hire. I don't think it's a game-changing hire. I don't think it's a hire that changes the Panthers because what I've seen from Frank Reich recently is if he don't have a quarterback, he is not a good – he brings really nothing to a team. Not only that, I saw Steve Wilkes without a quarterback, and I saw how good he had the Panthers playing. I saw Frank Reich without a quarterback. And I saw how bad his team was playing. So you can use that as an example. You can use the fact that people boast about how Frank Reich, Carson Wentz almost MVP season was with Frank Reich. Well, Carson Wentz season that basically put him under, he also had that with Frank Reich. Like, I get the people who are not, and Carolina Panther players came out and supported Steve Wilkes. But I just had a feeling he was never going to get the job. Now, the reason I'm not as outraged, because I do, like I said, all those points about the black head coaches, and I completely agree with those. The reason I'm not, it's probably two reasons I'm not too shocked about this. For one, because I never thought they was going to hire Steve Wilkes. And two, and this is a bias for me, I'm just not one of those hire a defensive coordinator type of people. As much as I like the job that Steve Wilkes did do for the Carolina Panthers, the back end of this season, I even think he proved that he can be a head coach. Like, it's not even that I don't think Steve Wilkes can be a head coach, because I liked his energy on the sidelines and everything. If I'm going to start over, and I just have to take the bias of a white man get to take over the job, I just got to that's something that's going to always happen. So I just have to let that go. My thing is, while I'm not the biggest fan of Frank Reich, because I think he need, how they say a system quarterback need everything to go right for him to have success. That's the same way I feel about Frank Reich. And he still didn't have success when things did go right. So he made the playoffs, I think, like once. And did he ever have Andrew Luck? Now, not having Andrew Luck is not an excuse, because there's a lot of head coaches who don't have an Andrew Luck playing quarterback. And they still, Brian Daboll, for example, they still find ways to get shit done. The reason I'm not going to go nuts about them hiring Steve Wilkes was because, hiring Frank Reich is because, like I said, one, I knew they was never hiring Steve Wilkes. But two, I'm just not the biggest fan of hiring a defensive coordinator as your head coach. Obviously, I said Lou Amarino, or the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. To me, that's an exception. It's like one or two defensive coordinators a year who I think done been great enough to be head coaches. But that's because they have been good for an extended period of time. But the leash is very short on my opinions when it comes to a defensive coordinator. Like, if you give Lou a job and he struggled within the first 2 years, I'm going to instantly think, yeah, you're going to have to go ahead and let him go. He better as a DC. Whereas an offensive coordinator turn head coach, they got to struggle like Nathaniel Hackett for me to let him go. Mind you, Nathaniel Hackett called plays for the Jags, but he did not call plays for the Green Bay Packers. Matt LaFleur called the plays over there. But that's neither here nor there at the moment. Actually, we're going to get to the Nathaniel Hackett thing in down the line. But nonetheless, when it comes to Frank Reich, I just think an offensive coordinator is the better hire in today's NFL, because the best OCs is usually head coaches now. So if you can get you a great OC, now I truly don't know how great of an OC Frank Reich is. Now, I'm not going to act like Frank Reich had a whole bunch of talent to work with in Indy, but I'm also not going to give him that as a huge excuse, because I see how other coaches get a lot more out of teams that have just as bad of talent or just as depleted at the talent as skill positions as the Colts were. But with that being said, this will be a better offensive cast aside from the fact he don't have a quarterback. If you're the Carolina Panthers and you looked at Steve Wilkes at the end of last season, you say to yourself, the best part about his scheme, aside from defense, was they run a real old school run, play defense. Well, you don't want that to be your MO in today's NFL. So I'm not mad at them for moving off of him if his philosophy was to play great defense and run the ball. Because at the end of the day, that's not winning the Super Bowl. That can help you get you there. But I just don't think that, I don't even know how great a game plan that is to help get you there. Like, to the playoffs, it could get you there, but you got to be able to throw the ball. And so I'm not too, maybe they could have made a better hire than Frank Reich. But the reality is the white head coaches, the white OCs, they always going to have the opportunity to fall for it. So like I said, I just got to deal with that. You just got to get that out of your brain. You got to deal with that. At the end of the day, if the best offensive mind on the market was Frank Reich to them, I can't really be mad at the hire, because you should be trying to have your your team become a more offensive forward team. When you already have a good enough defense, what is the purpose in hiring a defensive coordinator as your head coach? Just make a great defensive coordinator hire. I'm not that mad at the Carolina. I like the hire. Maybe you could have got a different head coach that was still an offensive mind, but I don't know if you could have, if this is who they thought was the best offensive mind, then I'm not mad at the hire, because that's exactly what I think NFL teams should be trying to do. Move forward with an offensive minded head coach. Now, listen, I'm sure they could have snagged somebody from the biggest problem some people are going to have with this is because Frank Reich, just how he left Indy. He left Indy struggling and immediately get the job, and Steve Wilkes did such a great job. And like I said, I agree with you 100%, but situations are situational, like Pat McAfee liked to say. And in this situation, I just think, because I'm going to be a whole band with you, I wouldn't have hired Steve Wilkes either. I would have been very appreciative of, I wouldn't have disrespected the man by not showing up to the last game of the season if I'm the owner, because I would have wanted to thank him for getting my team to this point. However, I would not have hired Steve Wilkes either, because I do not want a defensive minded head coach. And I just can't trust. It's easier to hire a head coach who got the offensive game plan, who calling the plays, and fire him if shit go wrong, than having to decide, is it the head coach or is it the OC? Or is it you know what I'm saying? Like, Frank Reich, I'm pretty sure is going to be the one calling the plays in Carolina. So if you can get him a quarterback. Now, if Frank Reich can't get it fixed this time, I'm pretty sure this time around he will have no more excuses. Like, I'm pretty sure Frank Reich will become an offensive coordinator if it don't work out for him in Carolina. And Carolina is a very passionate fan base. That is a great fan. That's a loyal fan base. Put it like that. But until Carolina do right by Cam, which Cam Newton, for some reason, people like to disrespect that, man, like he wasn't him. But nonetheless, Carolina is a great fan base. I still think they need to change the logo up a little bit. Not the mascot, not the actual Panther, just change up the logo a little bit. I still think they can do more with the uniforms, but that's neither here nor there. I still think they can upgrade the stadium a little bit more, but that's neither here nor there. This, to me, the Carolina Panthers is a franchise that's got it all. Love the logo, love the uniforms, love the colors, love where they located at. This should be, you want this to be a winning team. And I do believe they done had defensive mind. Listen, I understand Matt Rule not working, but that was a dude coming out of college. Frank Reich actually done been in the NFL. Mind you, this is not a tough division at the moment. Now, I do think Tampa Bay could quickly become a great team again if they can find a way to go out and get a good quarterback. If they go out and get Derek Carr, I think Tampa Bay will be right back in the running. The reason I think Frank Reich and the Panthers could take an advantage over the teams in this division, however, is because Todd Bowles is a defensive mind, as is the head coach for Dennis Allen for the Saints. Arthur Smith is an offensive mind, but he ain't got a quarterback either. So really, I would have more faith in either Carolina or Atlanta if they could get the quarterback position figured out, because they have offensive minded head coaches, meaning they not finna just be trying to run a run first offense, run and play great defense. They actually going to be trying to run great. Now, this is where it get a little bit rocky when it comes to Frank Reich, because I really haven't been that impressed with Frank Reich's offensive play calling or offensive system in Indy. And I know everybody give him the credit for how he ran a system, or how he was the quarterback's coach, I think. Because I think Doug Peterson called the plays in Philly. It's so weird when you try to get the resumes for some of these dudes, because, the media get to overhype some of these dudes. So you never know what's what. Like Nathaniel Hackett didn't call plays in Green Bay, but people act like he was the reason Aaron Rodgers won MVP. It's a weird thing. Either way, I understand the frustration that people have with the Frank Reich hire, but I'm not actually mad at the Frank Reich hire, because like I said, if they feel like that was the best offensive, and I understand them not wanting to take a chance on another college coach. I perfectly understand that. But if they felt like, the only thing that's kind of weird to me is when they had this, because they knew they weren't hiring Steve Wilkes. They knew that. if they had all this time to do a coaching search, it is kind of weird that Frank Reich is who they landed on based off of his recent history. You would have thought they would have made a different hire with another, pulled a McVay guy or just anybody else you think would have got this, like somebody we hadn't heard of or something like that. But Frank Reich is who they settled on. So in my mind, that's telling me they thought he was the best offensive dude to get them over this offensive hump. So if that's the case, I'm not mad at the hire. I'm interested to see where DeMeco Ryans is hired, because now that I think about it, I hope DeMeco Ryans get that Houston Texans job. Now, I know I just said I'm not with the defensive coordinator, but this is a dude who has not had an opportunity. I'm very interested to see DeMeco get his first opportunity as a head coach. And I would even give him longer. DeMeco Ryans, the reason I want him to take that Texans job is because, see, 2 black dudes done had to have that trash-ass job and stack up these draft picks and whatnot for the Texans. I actually do want to see DeMeco come in and reap the benefits of what those black dudes laid out for him, because they got the draft picks. They can get a quarterback in the top of this draft. DeMeco Ryans would essentially have his quarterback. He could go get his offensive coordinator. He could then start to work on his defense, building up the system. The parts around his quarterback. DeMeco Ryans could lay down a foundation with the Houston Texans. So I actually hope that DeMeco Ryans gets that Houston Texans job. Like, I saw somebody say, why would DeMeco Ryans cancel a Colts interview and an interview for some other team, but take the Texans interview? And at first when I read it, I was like, that's a good question. But then I thought about it. The Texans got a lot of capital right now in order to put together a great team in the next 2 years if they have a great head coach and a great system. Because it's not just going to be a head coach. DeMeco Ryans going to have a good GM. A GM and an owner that's willing to do what it takes and stay out of a grown folk business and let this man operate. Let him build his team. Do not put no restraints on him. Don't put no hidden agendas on him. Let this man build a team like they would let Kyle Shanahan build the team he wants. Like you let all these other coaches build their teams the way they fit and the way that they want to build it in their image. You let DeMeco Ryans build up this Texans team. The Houston Texans could be a good team again. Because like I said, they have the pick to be able to get themselves a quarterback right now. And it's beginning to build. So I hope DeMeco get that job. But then Nathaniel Hackett got hired as the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. Interesting hire. I don't really know what to make of it. Because like I said, they give Nathaniel Hackett so much credit, but he didn't call the plays in Green Bay. Matt LaFleur called the plays. Unless I'm wrong, I'm almost certain that it was reported a while ago that Matt LaFleur calls the plays, not Nathaniel Hackett. They just talk about how Aaron Rodgers liked to be around him. So when you hire Nathaniel Hackett, obviously people are speculating that maybe Aaron Rodgers end up in New York. Now, I personally don't think he's going to end up in New York. I don't think it would be a bad move for him to end up in New York, because you look at the weapons that they have. Like, the Jets probably got the best young team in football. I think all the Jets need is a quarterback. If the Jets get a quarterback, that's why I wanted to see Lamar Jackson play in New York. Like, Lamar Jackson with this young core, he only 25, 26. It'd be a match made in heaven. But Aaron Rodgers would be a great fit if he still got it. I'd rather see him in Oakland. I'd rather see him in Vegas, because I know what I'm getting from him and Devontae already. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers, because if Aaron Rodgers take a vacation during the offseason, I understand him thinking that he don't need to be there and all this shit, even though that would be wild to go to a new team not thinking you need to be at the training camp. But, bro, it's about the development of these young dudes now. These dudes done shown you that they can be franchise-type caliber players. So now every chance you get to grow and develop with them, you would take that. Now, I would much rather see Tom Brady with New York, because I think Tom Brady could rock out with the media. I just think with Tom Brady in New York and that media would be phenomenal. It'd be a match made in heaven. Like, we always talk about how tough the New York media is, which I think Aaron Rodgers in the New York media would just be a match made in hell. But Tom Brady in the New York media, bro, that media would fall in love with Tom Brady, bro. I'm telling you, they hard on everybody. They wasn't hard on Derek Jeter. They love Derek Jeter. I'm telling you, all the years that Tom beat them, they gonna instantly let that shit go. You want to know why? Because that's the price of being great. Tom Brady too damn great, man. They don't look at Rodgers the way they look at Brady. They gonna be easier. It's gonna be easier for them to be gentle and sidestep tough questions with Brady because they know what Brady represent. That's 7 Super Bowls. Aaron Rodgers got 1 in 1 appearance, and that was about a decade plus ago. They gonna act completely different towards him than they would Brady, which the New York media might not realize it. But when you rock out with your players and you show them love, that make them want to talk to you more. That make them play better. When you root for them, they play better. I'm telling you, Brady would change that whole atmosphere in New York because New York would now feel like we actually have a chance to win a Super Bowl. That's the effect Brady had. You look at what Brady did last year, nobody give a damn. As soon as he touched New York, you're going to feel like, as soon as he hit your team and you got the necessary parts around, you would instantly feel like you're a Super Bowl contending team. So I'm not a fan of the Aaron Rodgers to New York, and I just don't believe that he would tie his career to Nathaniel Hackett just because he cool with him. Like, that just seemed like go to New York because of Nathaniel Hackett or go play with Devontae again. Like, now maybe he do factor in all the weapons that New York have, but this is the thing. You want to know what's crazy too? If he got traded to the New York Jets, I don't even think the Packers would ask. Nah, they taking one of them receivers in return. The thing is, would they even pay one of the receivers? Well, they was willing to pay Devontae. But do they trust the receiving core? Nah, it's no way they think they have a good enough receiving core. They know they got to replenish in that position. I think they would try to get one of those receivers to try to help Jordan Love. Because I really think the Packers are going to go all in on Jordan Love now. I think Aaron Rodgers will be traded. I just don't see it to the Jets. Even though I know people saying, oh, you get Nathaniel Hackett, so you might be getting Aaron Rodgers. I mean, people thought that same thing last year when Nathaniel Hackett got hired as the head coach in Denver, and we see how that turned out. So I think Aaron Rodgers is going to end up going to. Now, listen, if you compare the divisions, like if he go to the Raiders, now you playing Pat Mahomes twice a year. You play Justin Herbert and the Chargers twice a year, which is not as daunting a task as it sounds. And you play the Broncos twice a year. Who knows how that turned out? Because the Broncos have a great defense, but who knows if Russ going to play like he did this year or is he going to be better next year? So that's still to be determined. I wouldn't mind if D'Amico Ryans got that job, as a matter of fact. But that is a tougher division on paper because it do got two great. Well, it's got every quarterback in the division would be good if Aaron Rodgers is over there. I understand the questions on Russell Wilson now. My questions for the Chargers is could they still the Chargers, it's just hard to have faith in the Chargers. And I've been feeling like that since they had Phillip Rivers. But the only sure thing in that division for me is Pat Mahomes, Pat McGoat, and the Chiefs. So that's not as daunting a division as people would say. But I understand people saying that's a daunting division. But then you look at the division. If he were to go to the Jets, you got the Jets, the Patriots, the Bills, and the Dolphins. He would probably be the second best quarterback in that division behind Josh Allen. And who knows, on a year-to-year basis, Josh Allen going through one of them turnover slumps, he could end up being the best player in that quarterback in that division with those weapons that they have in New York. If Aaron Rodgers is committed to being great, winning a Super Bowl, and like going in, hitting the ground running, like he going into training camps, he not going on vacation, he all in, then I wouldn't mind Aaron Rodgers in New York because that is a ready-made team. They have a great defense. The offensive line is good. They could obviously improve in some areas on that, but they have a great defensive line. They have great receivers. They have great running back. Breece Hall should be back next year. I'm not sold on Robert Saleh, but they have a decent head coach. You plug in Aaron Rodgers, and if he is still any semblance, I'm not saying he got to be the MVP Aaron Rodgers, but if he is any semblance of that rather than what we saw last year, then yeah, the Jets will be a team that's contending for a Super Bowl. However, if Aaron Rodgers think he gonna be able to act like I don't think, like I saw people saying he a toxic individual and all that. I just think I don't really get toxic from Aaron Rodgers. I'm not the biggest fan of his leadership qualities, but I don't know if I would call him toxic. You know what I'm saying? You got to be a specific type of person displaying specific type of actions for me to think you're a toxic individual. I think people, because they was mad about the immunization shit, that they kind of forget about all the side step. Like, it's just so crazy to me that we hold players to these standards, but not the organizations. Because when Aaron Rodgers was walking around throwing for 30, putting you 30 points on the board a week, the defense was giving up 32 points a week. So I'm very confused as to how now all of a sudden everybody blaming Aaron Rodgers for what the Packers didn't do while he was there. But before the immunization thing, everybody was on Aaron Rodgers' side. Like, I don't understand what changed. And I understand he done been bad the last couple years to end the season. He was bad in that playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was bad in that playoff game against the San Francisco 49ers. If we getting on him about that, cool, I got you. But to blame this entire thing on him, because it wasn't too long ago in the playoffs when their defense was just letting the 49ers and Colin Kaepernick run wild on them, giving up crazy yards. It ain't too long ago where they blew that game against the Seattle Seahawks. So we're not going to turn this whole thing with this revisionist history where we're going to blame everything on Aaron Rodgers. Now, I do agree it could be possibly time for a divorce. And like I said, if Aaron Rodgers is now rededicated, like, I'm not saying he was not dedicated anymore, but you could see how he could get a little, you playing in Green Bay for so long, you know that they bend to your every knee. So at least the last couple of years. So, you could get comfortable. If he willing to be uncomfortable and get back to grinding like it's his first couple years in the league again, I think Aaron Rodgers and the Jets make sense. Now, I still don't know how that media would be because I just don't think they would be as sympathetic and nice towards Rodgers as they would be to Tom Brady. But that's because it's two different type of people and it's two different auras and two different things that they represent. However, Aaron Rodgers do make sense for this team if that's something he is really committed to buying into. If he not sold on New York, then there's no shot that I'm trading for him. If there's any doubts in his mind about playing in New York, the media dealing with the mark, anything like that, then I want him in Vegas because I think he and Devontae, the thing about Vegas is they do not have we get Aaron Rodgers, it's a Super Bowl team right now. Even if he had his top form, because they don't have a great defense. And I'm almost certain maybe you get lucky and you don't trade away Max Crosby in order to bring up, like, I wouldn't trade away Max Crosby to bring over Aaron Rodgers for the simple reason I'm not getting Rodgers for like 2 more years. And I'm already one of them people who think if you go out and as a Raider and you get Aaron Rodgers, you trying to keep all these great players on your roster right now because you trying to get a Super Bowl within the next 2 years. I don't think they have a roster that's Super Bowl ready though. So it would be interesting to see the moves that they make if they went out to get Aaron Rodgers. Whereas New York Jets, they have a ready-made roster right now that can go win a Super Bowl. Not only that, you lose Aaron Rodgers, your roster is still a Super Bowl roster. You just got to replace him. But you were going to have to replace a quarterback this year anyways. So who says, and hey, maybe the Zach Wilson thing turn around. Maybe you have him play behind Aaron Rodgers the next 2 years and he develops somehow. If he doesn't, then you immediately let him start that season. You lose, you get back into the top in the draft to get a quarterback, and boom, you right back to it. I actually think this could make more sense for him to end up in New York. I'm just saying I don't know if he's completely sold on the New York media, if he want to deal with that. But if he cool with all that, yeah, it make a ton of sense. It make more sense for him to end up in New York. However, to me, the best option for New York is not Aaron Rodgers if Lamar Jackson is on the market. If Lamar Jackson is on the market, the sense is to go get Lamar Jackson. If you can make a trade for Lamar Jackson, you go get Lamar Jackson. And the Jets are in an interesting position because they have a ready-made roster. So giving up draft picks shouldn't be a problem for them right now. They should be willing to give up a first-round draft pick this year and next year for Lamar Jackson. Why? Because all you need is a quarterback. You have a defense. You have the receivers. You have the running backs. You can find an offensive lineman through trade, through the draft, through free agency. The Jets are in a situation where the roster that they have can be fixed with tweaks, especially if you get a Lamar Jackson. And you can guarantee you can commit to Lamar for the next 6, 7, 5 years. Whereas for Aaron Rodgers, it's a 1 or 2 years at the most you get in 2 years. At the most, probably 3 if he play real good. So I think if Lamar Jackson is available, that's the best possible option for any team to go get, but especially the New York Jets. But if he's not, then the next best option for the Jets, in my opinion, would probably be Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers, all this stuff that I just said about Aaron Rodgers, you can apply that to Tom Brady. And so both of those make sense because these are both ready-made rosters. Now, the reason I would probably say Brady make more sense for New York than Rodgers would is because Tom Brady has been a championship player for so long. You trust him to be able to get this team over the hump and then into the championship more than you do Rodgers. But it would just be they would have to determine that. If either one, Brady or Rodgers would want to play there though. So, it's going to be interesting how it all play out. Either way, I appreciate you for joining me on a quick episode of Kicking It with Saint, man. Tell somebody you fuck with them. Tell somebody you love them. You could be anything in this world. Choose to be kind to somebody. Saint out.
I got the moves like hot sauce. Lil' mama taking the top off. I'm laying down getting topped off. After this, she know she getting knocked off. I know she loving the money, so I keep on thumbing and thumbing. She say she horny when she taking shots, so I keep them coming and coming. Now I'm putting dick in her tummy. Scoop her up like I'm raking or something. You would think shawty red track, the way that she running and running. You getting dumber and dumber. You out here chasing the bone. After she finished from giving me dome, the Uber is taking her home. Tight.